For the recording. Yes, good afternoon, all of you. This is a continuation of the lesson Deep Water by William O. Douglas. Page number 26. We have to resume last paragraph. So, but the jump mate. So, and then in the midst of the terror came a touch of reason. That means it's voice of education. Something called, whenever we are losing our hope, whenever we are losing our faith, something will motivate us. So, likewise, when you was, drawing, so then in the midst of the middle of the terror came a touch of reason. I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. That was a strategy. You understand that? We can also consider that was a survival strategy. You understand that if he, does that, he will get this life like survival like. So I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. At last, I felt the tiles under me. That means, he reached the bottom. My toes reached out as if to grab them. Something, it's like catching that. So he also jumped. I jumped with everything what I had in the sense I jumped with everything I had. You can have a closed bracket. This is for your even textual, or you can go for it's like extract short answers also you can expect. So I jumped with everything what I had here, but the jump made no difference. That means first jump was somewhat better when we compare with the second jump, because in the second jump almost he lost himself. He lost energy. He lost his energy. He was totally exhausted. That's why the jump didn't or the jump made no difference. And of course the water was still around him, and I looked for ropes. He looked for ropes, ladders, or water wings, anything. He was just searching, right? And nothing but water, only he saw water. That's why I think in Samuel Taylor Coleridge wonderful poem. I think it's Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. There is a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge in English literature, and then the water everywhere, but nor a single drop of water to drink, like the things will like. So here the water still around him, in the sense, wherever he saw, he could see only water. So that's why he was just saying that I looked for robes and the ladders, water wings, nothing but water. A mass of yellow water held me, like he was just considering that it is like personification also we can take. A mass of yellow water held me, covered or caught him. It is like in a trap, and stark terror took an even deeper hold on me. Again, he was threatened by that experience. That was the thing. That means he was thinking that he is about to die, and like a great charge of electricity, it was like stark terror took an even deeper hold on me, like a great charge of electricity. Something, he was totally threatened, and I shook and trembled with the fright. That means he feared, and of course he was threatened by that. He was thinking about this fear. That means survival. My arms wouldn't move, my legs wouldn't move. Everything he was just stating that my arms wouldn't move, my legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help. That means cry or scream to call for mother. Is because that was his last moment. He was going to die. So he expected mother's presence, and mother's in front of him. He was just expecting that call for mother, and nothing happened. Nothing happened, and then strangely there was light. Something we are saying that something. It's like Tamil we say that Rolivatam. We are saying there was light. I coming out of the awful yellow water, awful, fearful yellow water. He was considering that was yellow in color. That means yellowish shade. That means inside the water. And of course, at least my eyes were, my nose was almost out to. That means totally nose was almost out to, in the sense, he was unable to even take his breath. That's why he was suffocating. That's our last moments like. Then I started down the third time. So in the second time also he tried, but he was unable to do any change. The third time down a third. So I started down, long way down, that 9 feet, 90 feet like. So then I started down a third time. So first he just did that. Again the second time also he did that. The third time he was trying to do that. I sucked for air and got water. Of course, in water, he sucked. He just tried to drink, and of course, even it's like inhale. I tried to inhale for air, and of course, got water. Only water was there. The yellowish light was going out. Something is a hope, like his hope, like there's even that belief. Maybe we can go for the faith. Everything was even his energy. So he was totally losing that. So then all efforts ceased. You underline the word ceased means you are ended, restricted. He was unable to take any attempt. So he relaxed to himself. So I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp. Underline the word here. So even my legs felt limp, in the sense, what is the meaning limp? Limb in the sense we are taking, it's like something, numbness, like because of the coldness. So numbness, he was unable to move his legs very properly, and the blackness swept over my brain. You can also underline the sentence. I have a close bracket. Even my or then all effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp, and blackness swept over my brain. Have a close bracket and write for even textual or extract. So here blackness something, we can also feel that is our, it's like fainting, and of course going to get our unconsciousness. So here blackness, that's something we are saying or irritable or bayam. So here the blackness swept over, underline the word swept over, maybe totally covered, dominated. So here swept over my brain in the sense covered or overwhelmed or something. It is like, overcame, or we can go for domination, dominated or restricted. So it wiped out fear. Something happened. Something like a change. Something, when we understand a concept, hereafter we cannot get our survival, then we will lose everything. Then we will submit in front of death. You understand that when we will fight for our survival, how much ever possible, how much ever energy we have, and up to that. For an example, you're just fighting with a lion in the forest, right? One lion you can somewhat balance, and you can also fight. When the second line comes, that's all, and the third line comes, that's all. So we will submit in front of the lions. That means, then in front of the dead. So likewise here, he first time he tried himself, the second time he tried himself, the third time he was totally exhausted in the sense, he was totally lost his energy. He was unable to, attempt also. That attempt also he was not ready to do that. So that he completely left everything. It wiped out fear. It wiped out terror. That means he submitted himself in front of death. There was no more panic. You understand? Because that's all. He hereafter nobody was there. He also cried. He also tried, but nobody came and supported him. So first time he attempted, and of course the second time also he attempted. Of course he got failure. The third time he was unable to do that, so that he submitted himself. That's why it wiped out the fear. That means, here we are taking out that experience, that incident wiped out fear. It wiped out terror also, and of course fear, and of course terror. There was no more panic in the sense, that's all he submitted. No other go. I have to die for my, my. It is like, destiny. It was quiet and peaceful. That means, instead of fighting or having a battle against of or death, we can just leave all those things. It was quiet and peaceful, nothing to be afraid of. That means, when we submit that, you come and kill me, no issues. So I'm going to die. That means we are committing that. That we understood the situation, hereafter we cannot get our survival. So I can submit. That means he left everything. So that's why he was saying that it was quiet and peaceful, nothing to be afraid of. This is nice to be drowsy. You underline the word drowsy here. That means, feeling drowsy. That means going to sleep. That means going to get unconsciousness. That means, going to faint. No need to jump. Why should I? Why should I? Because everything I lost. So no need to jump. Too tired to jump. And of course, I can say that this is my state. This is my condition. I was totally tired, so I wouldn't do anything. So that's why I'm saying that too tired to jump. It is nice to be carried gently. That means here, simply he left everything, all the attempt. He left. So it was nice. That's why it was nice to be carried gently. To float and he thought that it was like, floating or like something we are taking. So float along in space, like he was also, floating like, and tender arms around him. And he was considering the water as tender arms. And it's like, when we are using our mother's lap. So tender arms like mothers now. And he was considering the water held, and of course around him the water considered as your mother's arms. Tender arms. That means, soft touch, like everything. Because he left that. He was not going to attempt in the second, third time. So now I must go to sleep. Now I must go to sleep. Hyphen, you write that. It means going submitted in front of death. He was going to die. Then he was saying that I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell. Have a closed bracket and make an important symbol that I crossed, I reached to oblivion. Oblivion in the sense you can take and write that forgetfulness. Everything he just forgot. You understand that? I crossed to oblivion in the sense that forgetfulness, that state, that means, he just forgot all those things instead. He just forgot all those things instead, and the curtain of life fell in the sense he was saying that the curtain of life fell. You know what is the meaning? It's like, end of the movie, the curtain. Yes, sir. So he was just stating that I crossed to oblivion. So oblivion in the sense forgetfulness. He forgot all those things. That state. That means he forgot all those things. That was like a blind. I crossed. I reached to oblivion. That means he just left everything and he submitted in front of death. And he thought that the curtain of life fell. You know what is the meaning? The curtain, the screen of life. That means that's all. The door of the is totally closed. So you can also see that. So after the movie, the screen will in the curtain of something will be closed, like. And of course, likewise here he was thinking that was the last day of his life, and that's why he was, I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell for extract compulsory. You can just, it is very important. You can also write, this is from Deep Water by William O. Douglas, of Men and the Mountains, like. So here I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell, in the sense he was thinking that that's all, that's the day, that day was his end. Then when he submitted, the next he could remember. So the next I remember, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool. You underline the word beside, that by the side of the pool, and of course vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying that, but I was only fooling. You understand that it is like, I was just joking, yeah. Like the chap, underline the word, the chap means the big bruiser of boy who just threw him in water was saying that. That means, he just already he tossed, now just picked out, like. You understand? He just, when he submitted, I submitted to death, something happened. He didn't even think that. So the next he could remember, he was lying on his stomach beside the pool, in the sense he just lifted something, he lifted or picked out, and of course just made that arrangement, and he was just saying that the chap that threw me in was saying that I was only fooling. It is like prank. Already told you that. So, but I was only fooling, in the sense like I was just joking. Yeah, no issues. You can just go now. Then he just went. But some of them say, someone said that the kid nearly died. You can also underline the word. Someone said the kid nearly died. Those were near to him, like, they were saying that, and they said that. And of course, the kid, underline the word here, William O. Douglas nearly died. Be all right now. And he was very casually the big bruiser. He was just, managing the situation, and he was telling that be all right now. Of course, he got a survival. No, says I was just doing a prank. Okay, let's carry him to the locker room. You know what is the meaning locker room? The room next to him, and of course where they were taking rest. You understand that? And of course, so he was just simply saying, and of course he just left the place, the big bruiser. So several hours later, you understand that he was unable to come out from his terror, and of course that's why. So several hours later, of course, maybe 1 or 2 or 2 hours or 3 hours, he just spent there. He was unable to even walk. I walked home. You understand? Several hours later, I walked home. That means when I got some energy with that, that haunting fear, I was weak and trembling. You underline the word. This is his personal experience. One first experience he got when he was 3 or 4 years old, and of course when he visited California beach, and of course in the seashore with his water with his father, and of course he just he was buried in water. You understand that he was buried in water. That was a terrible experience. The second terrible experience happened when he was 11 10 or 11 years old, when he wanted to learn swimming, and of course when we came to YMCA pool, he got the second terrible experience. This is his actual experience. That's why he became weak and trembling. So I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. So when he went to home, and of course he was unable to sleep very properly because of that experience. That means, almost he just visited hell or heaven, then returned. You can ask. He just escaped from Yamadharma. You understand? He just escaped from Yama, and that's why he just visited. Almost he visited hell or heaven, then returned to earth. So that's why here I shook and cried when I lie on my bed. Nobody understood that pain. I couldn't eat that night very properly. I was unable to even think of my food. And of course, for days, a haunting fear was in my. Something have a closer bracket. So here, for days, a haunting fear. What is the meaning haunting fear? Haunting in the sense, visiting. Often he was suffering from that particular fear, and whatever it is. That means, something. For an example, a snake which we met in front of us. So likewise, wherever you see, even if a thread also will be like a snake. That means our own experience when we have especially swimming, and of course cycling or riding a bike without knowing very properly, even the car driving, something adventurous activities without proper training and of course knowledge. So that will always hurt us when we lost our breath. So for days a haunting fear was in my heart. So he was unable to come out of the spear. And the slightest exertion upset me. Underline the word exertion means your maybe the tiredness, right? Maybe the tiredness that exhaust activity. The slightest exertion means that exerts means tiredness totally upsets him, upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. You know what is the meaning wobbly? Wobbly means you're right, unstable. He was unstable, even he was unable to walk very properly, and of course his stomach was totally aching. So sick to my stomach, sick to my stomach. So by that terrible arbitrary experience, you understand that? Because you are a small boy, you would also have that some of it. For an example, or some big James like gigantic figures, some of them, it's like gym boys like they're fighting, they are just beating you. You cannot even, again, you cannot even oppose. So you have that, actual experience. Like, so I never went back to the pool. It's like, once we gone, we cannot go like. So I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. You can also have a close bracket. I never went back to the pool. I feared for water. I avoided it whenever I could, in the sense this is for your extract or even your textual questions from the Water William O. Douglas. And I represents our narrator or author of the lesson, Douglas. And of course, fear of water phobia. So here I never went back to the pool because of that bitter experience. Already I have two varieties. I feared water. Wherever I saw water, that's all. Wherever I see water, I fear. So I avoided it whenever I could. That means whenever, well, how much ever possible, he just avoided to go. So a few years later, something 1 year or 2 years or the third years or 4 years, the third or fourth or fifth, something a few years later, when I came to know the waters of the cascades. You underline that. So waters of the cascades, in the sense maybe like waterfalls. Waters of the cascades, underline and write waterfalls. Something we can also visit Kutralam, or of course we can also visit Okanakal. We can also visit some of the waterfalls areas, even falls, something even Kolli Hills we can visit. So a few years later, when I came to know, that means they're friends. His friends, they had started to share something wherever they visited. So he was something. He also got that curiosity, whatever it is, I have to go. So a few years later, when I came to know the waters of the cascades, I wanted to get into them. So he also wanted to get into them, in the sense he also wanted to maybe have that experience. It is like maybe taking bath or something, enjoying in the water with his friends and everything, so that he wanted to get into them. So and whenever I did, here he was telling that whenever I did underline the word and write tried, whether I was wading the Teton. Underline that Teton is a river camp, river place. So when I was wading means here covering or moving. Whenever I was moving to the Teton or pumping river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks. These are all the places, of course, water cascades and of course waterfalls area. So here Teton and pumping river or bathing in the lake of the goat rocks. The terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. So whenever something with the support of his friends, he also tried. He also tried to get some experience. But of course, the terror had seized me in the pool would come back. You understand that? Something whenever he was touching the water, that means experience. Of course, the terror, all the fear had seized me. It's like childhood's experience, or somewhere few years later. So 10 or 11, he got the terrible experience. Of course, maybe 15 or 16, when you wanted to enjoy all those things. That means maybe it's like canoeing or boating or whatever it is. So I wanted to get into them, and whenever I did tried, whether I was wading the Tintin or bumming river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. It would take possession of me completely. You underline the possession. So here possession means seizing, SEI. Is it ing? Seizing means are capturing, are catching, are covering, are making me feel weak. So it would take possession means overcome me completely. So my legs would become paralyzed. So whenever I remember the things, whenever I am trying to enjoy waterfalls or boating or canoeing and all those things, And of course, my legs would become paralyzed. You underline the word. That means that experience he just heard previously. Paralyzed means that means unable to move, controlled. And of course, icy horror would grab my heart. Have a closed bracket. Icy horror. You know what is the meaning icy? That much, cruel. You write have a closed bracket icy horror and write cruel. Cruel horror would grab my heart in the sense grab means catch, cover, overcome, controlled, restricted, hurt my heart. You understand that? He again, became weak like. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. You underline the complete sentence. This handicap, you underline the word. You know what is the meaning handicap? Handicap means difficulty. Are you right? Unable to do something, which is always. That means it is like our inadequacy, something we missed. For an example, we have one leg or one ear or something, one eye, or we can go for one hand. Something we lost, handicap, like something physically challenged. That means here we are something which is controlling us. We are unable to, not like a normal human being. We cannot take it that. So we are something depending upon. So here this handicap, that means that difficulty level stayed with me as the years rolled by. Something, of course, he also took his own years to come out of that particular you know uh, fear. In canoes of main lakes, you underline that it is also next to place. Canoes, a small boat on Maine. Maine is a place. Maine, in Maine lakes, fishing for landlocked salmon. Already told you, landlocked salmon. Landlocked salmon means, and of course, it is like big one and big one. It's fishing area. Landlocked salmon. Landlocked means your fishing area where they just enjoyed fishing. And of course, salmon. Salmon is a fatty fish. Like you can also write. That means deep water fish. Deep water fish. So here in canoes, small boat on main lakes, they also tried. That means there's team members, this group. I mean, of course, here the sphere group. The canoes on main lakes fishing for landlocked salmon. Bass fishing in New Hampshire, in that's a place. New Hampshire also, and bass fishing. That means low, low, low. That means that's already told you that there's something that varieties. Then it is always in the bottom. And trout fishing. Underline that trout. Trout means you write fleshy or fatty like fleshy, and of course trout fishing on the you write destitutes. Of course, destitutes, and Metolius in Oregon. These are all the places wherever they just visited and did fishing. Fishing for salmon on the Columbia at pumping a lake in the Cascades. Wherever I went, you understand, he was just bringing some name of the places. Something it is related to fishing areas. I hope you are all understanding. And of course, you can also see that here wherever. So in canoes on main lakes, fishing for landlocked salmon, bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on the destitutes of, and of course Metolius in Oregon. These are all the places wherever they visited for fishing for salmon on the Columbia, and of course pumping river or pumping lake in the Cascade. Wherever he visited, I went. The haunting fear of the water followed. You understand? The haunting, underline the word. That means, revisiting. Again, or visiting, fear of the water, or whatever I had already, followed me in the sense, again he got. That means, that was reminding the things, always it comes. Something, once we got experience, wherever we committed error, wherever we made mistake, the next attempt, it is like, trial and error like. So the next attempt, we will rectify the mistake. That means we will not follow that, because if we follow, we will get the failure. So that we already came. So here something that the experience will remind something us, just like wherever he visited, maybe it's Columbia, Bumping Lake, Cascades, or Metolius in Oregon, wherever he visited, that haunting fear of the water followed him. So it ruined my fishing trips. You can underline that. Have a closed bracket. From it ruined to swimming. It ruined, what is the meaning ruined? Totally collapsed or destroyed. You write or destroyed or collapsed. Ruined my fishing trips, deprived me. Underline that deprived me, it means avoided. Restricted me of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. You understand that? This is for your even extract and of course textual questions. So it ruined. Which one ruined? So here it ruined means that experience. It's underline the word and write that terrible experience. You write a bitter experience, whatever he had in YMCA pool and of course in California beach. It ruined my fishing trip. That means fear of water. It underline and somewhere you write fear of water. The fear of water ruined my fishing trips, deprived me, have a close to bracket and write, and of course prevented me of the joy of canoeing, boating, and of course swimming. You understand that? Likewise, that much fear, that much worries he had in his mind. So I used every way I need to overcome this fear. Something, when we don't know something, we will ask. So if you don't know typewriting, you will go to a center and of course you should know the things. Likewise, everything. You should know the writing, you should know the speaking, you should know the reading, you should know the listening, everything you have to. LSW, like all the skills in the world, whatever it is necessary for our survival, we have to go for that using computer and of course using mobile phone. Everything is using internet and of course you are reading a book, searching, finding, and of course researching and doing analysis. Everything we have to. We should know the things. Knowing, of course, knowing is an art. So here I used every way I knew to overcome this fear. Of course, he tried himself to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. You understand that? But it's underlined the word fear of water held me in finally in its grip, in the sense I tried my level best, but I was not totally separated from that particular fear because I had two bitter experiences like. So finally, that means he became somewhat adult. That's why he got this identity and the knowledge and everything. So he just took a decision. Finally, 1 October, I decided to get an instructor. Underline the word, the proper way of learning the things. So finally, 1 October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. I went to a pool and of course practiced 5 days a week. So in 7 days, 7 days, he just utilized 5 days hard work and of course maybe a smart or maybe a toiling and of course toil. I went to a pool after appointing an instructor. You know what is the meaning instructor? Underline the word. When we have a swimming coach, swimmer or a swimming coach, I just appointed or I joined with them. So I went to a pool and practiced 5 days. That's why I told you the secret of success is homework. No, it is a mini homework, before entering into a path, we need to analyze everything. We have to collect the things and of course we have to take initiation. So I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, a hour each day. You understand? An hour, 1 hour a day in a week, 5 days. So totally 5 hours in that. And the instructor put a belt around me, a rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable, and he held on to the end of the rope, and we went back and of course back and forth across the pole, and of course hour after hour, day after day, week after week. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. So how did he get? How he was just getting that experience. He was just sharing with the readers. The instructor put a belt around me, something, that was a system, of course, from even his hip also, and then his waist also something. He used that methodology to teach swimming. So here, of course, he just used the instructor put a belt around me, a rope attached to the belt went through a pulley. So here, pulley, underline the word, that means it's like a wheel with a flat that ran on. That means to continue an overhead cable connectivity, and of course tied each of them tight, and of course, and from this end, and of course his end. So here he held on to the end of the rope, and of course by holding the rope, and he also gave him the practice, and of course here everything you can also see that, and we went back and forth. You know what is I mean back and forth, everything moving. You underline the word. We went back and forth means moving, and of course back and forth across the pool, and hour after hour, day after day, week after week. That means bit by bit, he started to learn swimming. And of course, on each trip across the pool, whenever he just involved, each on each trip across the pool, a bit of, you can underline that, have a close to bracket, a bit of in the sense, maybe a mild, you're right, maybe a mild or a little fear has returned, and of course, my legs froze. So here he was just telling that a bit of the panic seized me, catching him. But anyhow, each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope, and I went under. Some of the old terror returned, and my legs froze. And my legs froze. You understand that? He was telling like that. Wherever he goes, he goes. And tomorrow we'll continue the lesson.